Happy Saturday, everybody. How's everybody doing? Glad to see you guys can make it. I know I'm starting. Oh, nuts. So enter the world, the scary world of Astro Nesto and what a CitizenCon to him means. All right, let's get into it. CitizenCon 2023, I mean 2953. That's right. I was lucky enough to be able to attend CitizenCon this year, my first CitizenCon ever. And I think it's the first in-person CitizenCon in 4 years, right? So it was a big one. It was a big one, if you will. Excuse these pictures, they are from my personal collection. But it was nice basically to get out there and meet so many citizens in person. All right, anyway, tonight I want to spend some time sharing our experiences with CitizenCon and all the great stuff that came out of it this year. And I know you all have a lot of opinions as well too, so let me know as we're going through it. And probably by the end of it, I'll let you know if I'm thinking about going back. But anyway, while I did not always hear what I wanted to hear, I want to give CIG some credit because I felt that they were fairly transparent, you know, as far as what they were doing, where they were at. They kind of shied away from giving dates, which I would have liked to hear, but, you know, I think in a spirit of, you know, transparency, they kind of gave us some ideas, but didn't really focus on, you know, get our hopes up about this will be released on January 1st, you know, nothing like that. So, you know, while it was a little frustrating, I think it was fairly honest. So I want to commend them on that. I think also it was really just nice to hear them give us really good status updates on where they're at with SC and the PU, but also Squadron 42's development. I think especially if you watched the closing of the event, the crowd really liked what they heard about the future of Star Citizen, so we'll dive into that in a little bit. Anyway, I also wanted to say, like, as a techie, somebody who programs for mainly on the IT side, I don't do game development, but I do work with programmers, and I know that we aren't by nature the most outgoing people generally. So I really admired hearing developers get up there and talk in front of a large crowd, because there was a large crowd. I think there was like over 2,000 people there. And sometimes, you know, they were like getting excited. It was really a supportive environment. But, you know, I think it's nerve-wracking to get up there in front of all those people, and plus you're being streamed live, you know, to countless other people. So, anyway, kudos to them. I think the developers are rock stars here, especially because for a lot of them, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but English was not their first language. So I just really admire and respect people who can get up and do that, because I can't do it. So... And not to mention, they're getting up there and talking about their passion projects and what they've been working on for the year. And you don't know how that's going to go over, so that can be a little nerve-wracking as well, too. Anyway, I think I walked away with a newfound appreciation for the developers. Even though I may not always agree with how the project is managed, it's not really the developers' fault. They're doing a good job, right? I also wanted to say, a lot of us who went to CitizenCon, we all held the line, right? We supported this project. I spoke to, like, people randomly, like in line when I was getting Wham burgers and stuff like that, and a lot of us spent a lot of money in our hangars, right? Or just to even get to CitizenCon, you spend a lot of money to support the project. So while you may hear some criticism, it's all with love, because I still do love the project and I really do hope the best for it. And if you hear something you don't like, you can slime me some more. It's fine. All right, moving along. Let's get into what they actually talked about at CitizenCon. Starting out with Star Engine, try to give a quick synopsis of what that is. And I'm just going to run through some key takeaways, because I cannot go through everything that happened in CitizenCon. We'd be here like all day. Anyway, they decided to go more into Star Engine, which I guess has always been there, but I think this is the first year I'm hearing it called Star Engine, so maybe they decided to brand it. But anyway, it's you know, basically the heart and soul of Star Citizen. It's what the platform is running on. They talked more about how they're developing it and where they're taking it, as well as what it can do. I do think they actually took a little bit of some shots at Starfield, which I don't think they needed to do because that game is already having trouble. but they did remind us that Star Citizen has no invisible walls, it's seamless, and I don't know. I think those are kind of like some big criticisms of Starfield, so I was like, you guys don't need to do that. We all know what Star Citizen is. But anyway, it is an achievement. Star Citizen becomes more and more visually impressive every year. And as you'll see, Star Engine is a big part of that. Really talked about how many elements that Star Engine processes like every second, and it's like an impressive amount. One other thing they mentioned as well too is that they're supporting over 200 vehicles that are currently in the game right now. I didn't know that there were like 200 plus vehicles already. That seems kind of insane. And I was trying to like think about it on my flight home, and I was like, where are these 200 vehicles? Are they like different variants of current vehicles that we have? So I got to go back there and actually look some of that up. But anyway, I was surprised to hear that number. And also that 2 million physical objects are being managed by the engine. So that's a lot of hospital gowns that are scattered all over the place. Anyway, going more into Star Engine some more, they kind of spent the morning talking about some visual elements of the engine, how they're adding some new stuff like cloud light shafts, which I just like saying shafts, but those are like those little lines of light that come out from the sun between their volumetric clouds, and they're adding volumetric shading and all that stuff, and ground fog, ground fog, which it doesn't sound like much, but it actually will improve the environment and create more diverse environments and planets and help us get that sense of feeling of weather and stuff like that. So it is actually impressive. Oh man, how expensive were the Wham burgers? They were like typical LA prices for the Wham burgers, I would say. I don't remember. I'd have to go back and look at the menu. I think it was like maybe $10 just for the burger, and then fries were like extra. All right, moving along with Star Engine. I don't want to spend too much time on Star Engine because we'd be here forever. But some of the fun things that came out about Star Engine that I thought was really nice was one, the dynamic fire. I don't know if you guys watched that demonstration, but it was pretty funny. but also they kind of talked about how they have a realistic simulation of the fire, which basically starts from the ignition and how it spreads and all that stuff. I mean, it's pretty crazy stuff, pretty fun stuff, and stuff I'm looking forward to. As you can see here with the video on the left side, they demoed like my baby, the Reclaimer, on fire, and the crew running around, which is pretty crazy. I thought that one was pretty funny. So yeah, I mean, that's something that we're going to be looking at pretty soon, right? Having to manage fires and, hazards within your ship and stuff like that. And what I also thought was kind of funny with this is like, you're kind of expecting your hero to be able to put out the fire on a ship, but that didn't necessarily happen. He basically had to make a call, whether he was going to save his Pico or, go down with the ship. So I think that's going to be interesting gameplay for us to look forward to. They spent a lot of time talking about the new water system also. I don't want to spend a lot of time on that because, I got to be honest, the water, it looks nice and everything like that, and it's definitely an upgrade. And as you can see on the right there, how the ship is kind of interacting with the water, that's impressive, but it didn't really do it for me. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but it is pretty cool to see that those features are there. Let's see what you guys are saying. And Bromway says, yeah, it looks neat, but unless it's playable and environment's not useful. That's totally true. And this is kind of a thing for me throughout CitizenCon. I saw a lot of great things, a lot of impressive things, but I kept thinking to myself, every time they add stuff to the game, it like becomes more and more buggy, or they have to like balance out the servers, figure out all that stuff. So, which is normal, right? That's part of the optimization process, and it's part of building out your infrastructure and all that stuff. But like they'll demo it to you in their environment, like where their dev environment is, which everything looks perfect, but you all know that like what we're getting in game is going to be a lot rougher, right? As we are basically, I feel like we're beta testers. I know I said that at Astro Pub stream once and he got very mad with me, but that's the way I feel. We're unpaid beta testers. I'm actually paying them for the right to beta test, right? This part here, blood, sweat, and tears, I'm just talking about it because I thought it was kind of humorous to me. It is pretty impressive. Obviously they added an improved particle effects simulation with skin shaders and all that other cool technical stuff to really bring expressions down home, as well as blood coming out of your ears and things like that. So those are going to be pretty cool effects as our characters are getting beat up. They weren't necessarily the features that I was looking forward to, but I did think that this will really help Machinima look a lot better and more impressive. I already think Star Citizen has some of the best machinima out there, and a lot of that has to do with the creators as well too, but the engine is really great for filming stuff. But look at that, you can put all this emotion in there, so that'll be cool. But as far as actual gameplay goes, I don't know if I'm going to stop and be impressed, if Scarlet, puts on the tears. I don't know. That's just me though. More character stuff. Hygiene was talked about, so that's going to be a thing. The reason why I wanted to bring this up is because you guys know that I love talking about bathrooms and spaceships. So, hey, it's going to be a thing. We're actually going to need to use them. I knew I was right. I knew I was onto something. There. Anyway, that was my moment of triumph there. Moving along, they talked about frontier fashion. This is like a lot of the clothing that you're going to see in Pyro. They have this modular storage system that they're coming out with, which is basically like, they're like pockets that you can attach to the clothing and stuff like that to store extra stuff. So I thought that was pretty cool. I think it's already cool that like whenever a game gives you the ability to like craft your own clothing and to make it unique. I don't know, if you ever see me in game with this thing out, I'm gonna have like 5 or 6 pockets like on my pants and on my arms and everything weighing me down. And that is right, Scarlet. You cannot have me stinking up the bathroom. I feel bad for the Cutlass people, because there's no bathroom in a Cutlass. Well, no official bathroom, right? Anyway, moving along. They talked about adding some gangs in the game, which I thought was, cool. Let's talk about some of the gangs that they're thinking of adding in there to make some of the NPCs a little bit, more interesting. And also, basically, we've only had really one gang in the game right now, the Ninetails, and, they brought up kind of like a funny stat where we've already killed like millions of Ninetails, so they need to add some more variety in there, and I couldn't agree more. So enter Rough and Ready. This is a gang that uses tattoos to signify their rank and hierarchy in the game. So I guess we'll be encountering them in Pyro stations, mainly. There'll be a faction that you can do missions for and earn rep, and you'll be able to actually earn the tattoos that they are adorning on their bodies, basically. The other cool thing about the tattoos is I guess they're, I'm not sure how they phrase it, but it looks like as you keep on adding the tattoos, it'll become like part of an overall design. So that seemed pretty cool to me. Although I'm not a very big tattoo guy, but I know the crowd kind of went wild for tattoos. I mean, me personally, I don't get it. I don't have tattoos, so it wasn't the biggest thing to me, but there were some people like losing their mind over this stuff. Actually, the crowd lost their mind over a lot of things. Headhunters, they're another group. Also going to be in Pyro. They're, sporting more of a frontier aesthetic. These guys have a Mad Max vibe kind of going on. I feel like they definitely have a Beyond Thunderdome thing going on here. A lot of metal and bone used in their outfits. And I thought this helmet with the mohawk was pretty cool. You might see me get one. I don't know if the Dusters or the Headhunters are my people, but, I did like the helmet. Alright, moving along to the Dusters, who I guess I just kicked Dusters out of my mind. This one's going to be a criminal gang with a specialization in mining-related crimes. So they'll be jacking miners of their rocks, running illegal mining operations in, basically on somebody else's claim that they shouldn't be on. They are inspired by the Desert Nomad armor that you can pick up right now. I believe I always see it in Grim Hacks. I know you can get it in other places. But, anyway, I thought it was pretty interesting. Especially because, as we get into Pyro, a lot of those planets have like a very Tatooine, deserty like feel to them. So as you can see here on the left, you got the common armor all the way up to the legendary armor on the far right side above my head. So that'll give us something cool to pursue, right? Alright, moving along. Next up is cloth, lighting, and sound. My most exciting things to talk about. Don't get me wrong, they are doing really great work here, so I don't want to discount anything that they're doing, because as you can see here with the lighting, they have added a lot of ray tracing and stuff like that to make things look better. And if there's one thing Star Citizen knows how to do, it's make things look pretty. And they're definitely doing a lot of that with Star Engine. It's just maybe not the most exciting thing to gamers, right? Because this is stuff that happens in the background that you may not necessarily always be aware of, but it's really cool stuff. But the reason I left the cloth section in there is because they showed a segment from Squadron 42 here with Admiral Bishop and his trench coat walking through, and I just thought the segment looked pretty cool. But if you look at the jacket and how it's moving and all that stuff, I mean, that's a lot of simulation that they put in there. All right, moving along. There's a new character creator in the works, which is going to be a pretty big deal. This one seems to have like a sculpting kind of thing going on here. I called it sculpting because I feel like you're kind of like molding your face, like, you'll see here they can grab different things and they pull them and stretch them, basically to change the But another notable thing to come out of this is that we're going to be able to save our looks and carry them on, which is a big deal to me. I'm always creating the same character anyway. But if I'm going to spend like an hour working on my character, you better believe I better be able to take it with me through every wipe. So I'm glad that they're doing that. I'm not sure how they're going to implement it, whether they're exporting it out to a file or whatever it's going to be, or even codes, but at least it's something, right? And another big thing to come out of this segment is that they're adding in makeup as well, eyeliner and shadows and stuff like that, and also hair coloring. So I know that the hair is a very big deal, especially to some of the ladies out there. Yes, hair, the hair section. So they had a lot of different hairstyles in here, and they had an interesting segment too, where they were talking about the fact that they can actually simulate strands of hair, which, you know, it's kind of crazy that they can go that deep, and, you know, like they actually have like collision detection and stuff like that for the hair to make it like really realistic as it's moving around. But again, stuff you're probably really not going to notice all the time. And yes, time for the purple hair. More purple hair. For people like me, where we're kind of thinning out up top, I don't know. It's kind of a sad section for me, but but you guys could enjoy it. But some of the stuff we should be seeing in game this year, I think they said, so that's pretty cool. I don't know. Here's my disclaimer. Strap in for this one, because this is going to be a little bit of a ride. The server meshing, persistent entity streaming, and 30K protection. I kind of lumped this all together into one, and I'm going to do my best because there was a lot of technical jargon in this section. But if you got through it, it was a really good presentation. Let's go with that. I felt like I was sitting through a master class on how they implemented server meshing and persistent entity streaming. And the way that they did it is pretty clever. So anyway, I recommend if anybody's interested in server meshing, go back and watch this section. I'll try to sum it up as best as I can, but, you know, I'm sure I'm going to make some mistakes. But anyway, as you guys know, server meshing is not really a new thing. It's been in games like Atlas and stuff like that. But the difference for Star Citizen is that with these other games, they're basically just kind of like streaming in textures and maybe geometries that you see around you. But as we know with Star Citizen, we want to stream objects, right? We want to be able to leave Pico dolls and cans and gowns and all kinds of other stuff in a certain place, in a certain position. We want it to be there for everybody to see when they come to that certain place, no matter what server they're on. So that's where persistent entity streaming comes in. Basically, they explain that they have like a really deep database, which is like that upper right-hand corner blue thing over there. It looks kind of like a flowchart, where they're basically tracking everything that makes up an object. So what they're kind of trying to show here in this video here is that, like, every time they res a buggy or, you know, bring out the picos, they're tracking those elements in their database, which we kind of knew was happening anyway, right? But the trick of it is, one thing that they do, I should have explained the streaming part first, is, as you can see in the bottom right left corner, they just flipped that over. They've broken down that map into like 3 zones that they're going to kind of go through, and each zone is being streamed not only on your game client but also on the server itself. So it's loading all those objects from the database in each one of those zones. But here's where, if you're a nerd, here's where it gets like really sexy, right? Because each one of those zones is basically assigned to a different server shard. So that's really great for performance, right? But the real trick of this is, and I'm really trying to do my best to explain it as possible, best way as I can. They added a replication service, basically, which allows that database information to be replicated along all the servers that are working together, right? So where this comes in and why it's important is if a server drops out, and they actually demoed this, the game doesn't crash like it does right now. Basically, it might freeze for a little bit, but you're still in the game. You know, you might see a little bit of some jerky stuff the way they have it now, and I think it's only going to get better. But the reason why you're not crashing is because the other servers are aware of the zone that you're in, even if that server didn't own that zone. So it can keep things going well enough for another server to get in place. So that was kind of a big deal for me, because I'm thinking, okay, if I'm hauling stuff or whatever, or you're in the middle of a battle, you don't have to lose your progress, right? So even if it takes a few seconds, or I think realistically it will take a little more than a few seconds, because in these demos, it's obviously perfect conditions. But, you know, as they're perfecting the technology, it'll get better. The fact that you don't have to lose your progress, I think, is a very big deal. The other thing they mentioned as well, too, as you're streaming zones, like in this demo, they show you that they're basically streaming 2 zones at a time, and then they drop the 3rd zone out. Why that's kind of important is it allows them to take zones that aren't occupied by any players and take it off of that server shard and then reallocate that shard to another part of the galaxy where it's needed and stuff like that. So that's going to help keep overhead costs on the infrastructure low, as well as, you know, basically allow servers to go where they're needed. I definitely recommend go back, check out this section if you're interested at all in server meshing. But the big takeaway is that they actually got it working, they demoed it, and even though it's in its early stages, it's giving us enough hope that it's going to get in the game. And this basically will allow Chris Roberts' vision for Star Citizen to be realized. And that's why, you know, he comes out at the end of the section and he's like, you know, when he showed me this, I cried. The guys who built it, they're really smart. But yeah, I would recommend definitely take some time, go through this section, try to digest it all if you really want to understand how server meshing works and how it's going to work for us. And I took a bunch of notes here and I still like just threw them out and just decided to go ad-lib it off my mind here, because if I read everything, we'd be here forever. So I'm sure I probably like skip something here or there. So definitely watch it for yourself. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but basically they're working on a new augmented reality system, basically improving it with better markers and stuff like that. Stuff that I think other games have right now, to be quite honest. But these are going to be like quality of life improvements that'll basically make playing Star Citizen a lot better and help you navigate the world a little bit better. The Mobiglass, it's getting like a little bit of a facelift. It's going to look more three-dimensional. It's going to have apps that you can add to it and stuff like that. Yeah, so this is the new Mobiglass and what that looks like. I thought it was really cool, and it looks like it's only going to get better. And then they added some new maps in here, as you can see, and they talked about having map terminals. So as you go into new areas, you're going to be able to go up to these terminals and download the maps to your Mobiglass, and you'll be able to see them. Like if I fast forward a little bit over here, like in the upper left hand corner, you can see that map is there that he downloaded from the terminal. It's a big deal if you've been in Star Citizen, right? Because we haven't had these quality of life improvements, but it's not necessarily a big deal in gaming because a lot of games have like a mini map, you know, concept to them. But one thing they did talk about adding is that they're using AI to basically allow you to mark points of interest on your maps, and then it'll actually route its way to those points of interest for you and show you like how to get from point A to point B, which is really cool. And it'll take into account also like things that happen within the world. So if there's a fire maybe on one level, so you're not going to be able to get through that fire, it'll reroute you and stuff like that. Kind of reminds me of like Waze or your GPS in your car. The other cool thing about this, which I thought was worth mentioning, is that because you can mark your own points of interest, you're going to be able to create your own maps. And creating your own maps is cool because that means you can share it with your team members, or you could also sell them to other people and stuff like that, right? And it also kind of gets into maybe some of the beginning steps of data running, right? Hopefully we'll get some of these quality of life improvements, I hope, next year. I didn't quite catch when. All right, and then finally, the new star map, right? This is something we've needed for a very, very long time. Basically, they use the same ground mapping technology to give the star map a little bit of an overhaul. Some of the key takeaways is that you have improved markers, text for visibility here. You can actually search for things now, which, again, I mean, I was able to do that in Elite Dangerous. I'm glad to see that Star Citizen's finally doing it. It's just going to be a great quality of life improvement, I think, for everybody. They really showed off the fact that you can manipulate the map now, and you know, like if you go under the planet, the text will actually flip, so it's right set up so you can read it. You can actually zoom in and zoom out without having to worry about where you're going to be. Like you know how right now when you zoom in and zoom out, you might like end up like in the middle of space somewhere. All that crap is going away. So they were pretty excited to demo this one. There's more stuff in here, but I don't know, this is just my personal feeling. I thought the crowd was a little bit out of it, and I don't know if because we sat through a lot of stuff to get to this point. But I also think it's kind of like the map looks great, but these are all features that we expected it to have, right? Or how we thought it should have worked in the first place. So I don't know if it was that exciting of a segment, but the bottom line is I think they did a great job here, and I'm glad to see that it's coming because we need it. To catch up on chat here real quick. Yes, Scarlett is saying the intention, quote unquote intention. It's almost like his lawyers told him like what to say, right? You know, credit to Chris Roberts, actually. Sometimes we joke about Chris Roberts and the dates and all that stuff, but I think he knew how to read the room this time around. He even jokes about it, the fact that he's not going to give a date because, you know, we go crazy every time he does. So, you know, kudos to him, I think. All right, distribution centers. This is an interesting concept, I thought. They're finally going to add like these large distribution centers to planets. These are going to be the biggest ground locations outside of basically large city landing zones. These will be owned by factions like the UEE or, you know, like companies. I think they use Grey Cat as an example here. These are going to have multiple landing pads and hangars and fashion-specific shops, so you can get your swag on. You know me, I love my swag. It'll also allow you to build factional reputation with these groups who own the distribution center by running missions for them and stuff like that. It actually has a road network, so the crowd went a little crazy for that, just because I think we're dying for a reason to use our ground vehicles, right? One thing they didn't talk about though is, does that road network extend outside of the shipping facility? Because in my mind, I'm kind of thinking like these things should be built around a city, because the people who work here, where they live, right? So I would have liked to see like a highway or something like that going up to this, but you know, it's just still early phases, so who knows, maybe it's coming. So it remains to be seen how far those road networks would go, but that was one thing that kind of stood out to me as a question. Now, it's not just for hauling. You think with a distribution center that you would just go there for hauling, but as you can see with the video that's above my head, there's actually going to be raiding that goes on there. So there's going to be different ways you can get in and out of these distribution centers. You can go the legal route, or it looks like you can do some illegal stuff here, and you'll actually see that this group kind of storms in and just takes what they want. Of course, they're using a cutlass, which I think is Drake bias. You know, not all pirates use cutlasses, just most pirates. But, yeah, you know, you're going to be able to go in there with your crew. It'll give us more stuff to do besides just bunkers, I think. So that's pretty cool. Let's see what chat is telling me here. Astro says, I find with a lot of being shown was in-game engine and not sims or JPEGs. Yeah, that's a really good point. The only thing I would say about that, though, is like it always works better on their systems because they don't... they're not dealing with the same amount of traffic. Oh, nuts. But anyway, it always looks perfect and it runs perfect for them because I think they have like, you know, ideal environments. But that's fine. They're deving the game, so you know, it'll happen. I only bring it up because you're watching basically videos that they made, and I think the experience we get is a little bit rougher. But you're right. All this stuff that we're watching is in game, so there's reason to be excited for that. Let's see, Shadow says, I think the facility like this can exist easily on their own with regular drop-offs and food supplies. I mean, it's possible. I mean, I'm sure there could be living quarters and stuff like that in there. Maybe some of them even grow their own food, or maybe they're eating space paste. I don't know. But I just think, like, realistically, just my opinion, but if UPS builds like a distribution center or Amazon or whatever, most people are going to probably want to go back to their own house or something like that. But that is a whole section that we will talk about in a little while. It sounds like you guys are excited about distribution centers as much as I am. I just really want to see just new stuff in the verse to do. But these look really big, really detailed, a lot of stuff to do. So I like that. All right, moving along. Hangars and freight elevators. You wouldn't think that this would be an exciting section, but my takeaway was we're finally going to get what hangars were supposed to be. And when I was watching this segment, it actually brought me back to what Star Citizen was in the early days. I don't know when you guys got involved with Star Citizen, but when I pledged, I want to say back in 2014, you couldn't do anything in Star Citizen but just walk around your hangar. You were able to kind of like decorate it a little bit. You had like your buggy you could drive around in. I got excited about Star Citizen because, at least in my hangar, I was able to pull out different ships, move them around. You had like different parts of your hangar that you could park them in and go inside. So, you know, it made me dream about what this constellation would be like when I can actually fly it. And then we kind of lost that as the PU came out. So I like to see that they're talking about bringing back the hangars. We're going to finally be able to decorate it with all those little trinkets and decorations that we're getting in our inventory. I don't know if you guys ever noticed that, like we have stuffed plushies and stuff that you can't really use, so it'll be nice to decorate your own spaces. But yeah, long story short, there's a lot of personalization that's going to be going on there. These hangars will actually hold physical vehicles. You can see here in the video above, they kind of demoed the fact that you're going to be able to pull out your ground vehicles without having to go to like some random base on some random planet, because it's actually going to be in your hangar where it should be. No more traveling to strange places, things just won't appear out of nowhere. It'll kind of make sense where it's coming from. So I think that that's kind of cool as well too. And you can see also they're kind of demoing stacking boxes and all the different crates and stuff like that. You'll actually have to move that stuff around on the freight elevator in a realistic manner. It's not going to magically appear on your ship anymore. So yes, us boxers will have our time. Our time is here. You know, I started out my career as a proud boxer. I used to do delivery missions. That was my first thing to do in the verse, and I loved it. And yeah, I think there's going to be some people like in your org or in your crew that they may not even want to fly. They may want to just like play around with tractor tools and load stuff and get paid for that and then go home. You know, so I think that that's really cool. This game is just, it's just so massive, right? With all the different things you're going to be able to do. I just hope it works. Let's see, is there anything else I'm forgetting that you guys think I should mention in here? Let's see, if they build a facility in the Arctic, you would expect to live inside their building, right? Not necessarily. I mean, I lived in the Midwest. I lived in snow for half the year. And as soon as I could move off campus, I did. So, I don't know. To each their own, right? Quartermaster role. Are you talking about for the hangars? Yeah, quartermaster or like a foreman. Is that what the quartermaster is? I don't know. I never used the word for quartermaster, so I had to think about it. But did you see that trolley that he's using to push the boxes around? That seemed like it's going to be a new vehicle that they're going to bring out as well too. So I think it is time for the boxers. We're going to have our time in Star Citizen. All right, base building. Who's excited to see base building? I know myself, when this segment came out, I was kind of thinking again, I think they're... Thanks for that pie. Making me hungry. But when I saw the base building come out, I was like, is this in reaction to another sci-fi game having outpost building? Where they were like, okay, let's make sure that we remind them that we have this in our game. But anyway, it was a pretty cool segment to see what they're thinking about with the base building. It's pretty thought out so far, the system that they have. It's in its early stages, so who knows if everything is going to stay in there. But they finally gave us at least some meaningful detail on what they're thinking about here. And you can see there's a variety of different buildings. Everything's going to be based on blueprints, so you're going to have to go acquire those blueprints in the world through various methods to build your stuff. I found it interesting that the location that you choose to build your settlement is going to play a role in how many taxes you pay or how much security you have available to you. And living in high risk areas will have high rewards, but they will be risky. So that's something to take into consideration. It reminds me very much of EVE Online, where, you know, if you're mining in bad areas or you set up your outposts and stuff like that to extract resources, you know, you're going to make a lot more money, but you do have a chance of getting ganked by pirates. And that's pretty much, I think, the model Star Citizen's going with as well, too. People will be able to raid your settlements and stuff like that if it's in low sec areas, but you'll have, you know, higher yield of resources and stuff like that. So definitely something to look forward to. And I really like that they thought about it and they're really developing it out. And this quartermaster thing, this quartermaster conversation is really developing. Quartermaster is the person who makes sure that all supplies are kept at correct levels. Okay, I got you. Your dad was a quartermaster in the army? Gotcha. Okay, cool. Well, you know, shout outs to all the quartermasters out there. So back to base building. These are the type of vehicles that you're going to target if you're into base building here. Basically, they talked about some ground vehicles, like you can see here, you've got a mule and that ground trolley and stuff like that. I think you're going to be able to stuff those in pretty much any ship, right? They're going to be able to build small to medium-sized structures, so I thought that was pretty cool. The Galaxy here on the right, I thought that was really interesting that the Galaxy is going to be involved in base building. If you have a Galaxy, you're going to be able to do anything from small to large structures. And then finally, the ship that has been in my hangar so long that I forgot it was there, the Pioneer. I feel like they haven't given the Pioneer any love for years or even talked about it. But anyway, the Pioneer, it's going to be the, you know, it's going to be the head honcho. It's going to be the big dog. It's going to be your mobile base, your mobile construction yard. It's going to be able to do everything base building construction wise. So if you're a base builder, this is probably your in-game ship that you're trying to get to. Or if you're Space Dad, you just save $1 and buy it. But anyway, they are going to start development on this. They haven't even started development on this. So they're just talking about starting development on it in Q1 of next year. So don't count on seeing any of this stuff anytime soon, but at least we know they're working on it. All right, coming up next, we're almost towards the end. Pyro. I mean, I could not get out of CitizenCon without talking about Pyro. Pyro's playing a big role in the verse this year. As you can see above me, that was the Pyro playground where we played in the playground. These are my crude images that came off of my cell phone, but this is me running around in Pyro. And I got a very Star Wars Tatooine-ish kind of feel as I was going through the structures and everything like that. But I was overall very impressed with the detail of the stations. You know, I can't wait for you guys to see it. I believe it's coming at the end of this month, right? Which is like just a few days to Wave 1 testing. So, I mean, yes, I feel like we've been talking about Pyro forever. Actually going to be able to go to Pyro, so that's awesome. All right, anyway, notable things about Pyro I just wanted to say real quick is in the Pyro Playground, which is really cool that they let us attendees play it, they only gave us like 40 minutes to explore, and my session was cut short because I was told I actually experienced the first and only 30K that happened in the Pyro Playground. So, you know, go figure. I'm lucky that way. What I did get to experience was pretty impressive. There's these new solar flares, which I think Braum experienced, that can knock you out of quantum. So that is going to be a cool added element to look forward to. Just something else you're going to have to consider in your quantums. I don't know if you can completely go to sleep. But yeah, my experience, I only landed on 2 planets in Pyro. The other thing I noticed too is the Pyro planets seem like they're very far apart, right? I felt like I was in quantum for a very long time for planets I thought were nearby. Like a sense that I was in Tatooine or just like Star Wars kind of vibes in there. But the outpost buildings are pretty impressive. As you can see, the settlement buildings, like I think I was by like that flower pot there in the upper left-hand corner. It's just a lot more detailed than the buildings we have in Stanton, so looking forward to that. Yeah, you were confused about the solar flares too, and they didn't actually explain the solar flares, I think, till they start talking about the Pyro section, which wasn't until like day 2. See, Shadow says she was watching a video where somebody's ship went haywire. Was that from the solar flare? That's pretty cool. Alright, let's move along, because we're talking a lot about the galaxy, and it just so happens that I wanted to talk about the ships that came out of the show. Starting with the Crusader A1 Spirit. Crusader A1 Spirit is flyable now, as many of you guys know. You're probably already flying this guy in-game. I'm not sure why they decided to start with the bomber first. Like, of all the variants, because it's the one that I'm interested in the least. But anyway, it debuted. You can pick one up, Warbound, for 175 US dollars. I'm not sure what that translates into anybody else's currency here. $200 if you're bringing store credit. It is the pricey one of the spirits. All the spirits look the same, but this one is obviously loaded with the bomb bays. A lot of bomb bays. Looks like it's got 10 size 5 bombs, 2 size 2 remote turrets, and can handle a crew too. Does anybody have an A1 in chat right now? I have the upgrade to the A1, but I'm not sure if I'm going to apply it or not. Because I already have like a C1. That's the one I really want. Anyway, I thought what was worth mentioning here is that you're not getting the lifetime insurance with this one. You're getting the IAE insurance, which IAE is coming out at the end of the year. So that's the 10-year insurance. So hopefully you have an LTI token if you're going to upgrade to the ship. 10 years isn't bad, but I'm an LTI person. I just love to have LTI with my stuff. Bass is flying the A1 right now. What do you think of it? I wanted to basically just get it just because I wanted to see how the spirits handle, but I'm definitely not a bomber guy. I'm like I fashion myself a space trucker. I like to carry cargo. I'm not talking about this kind of cargo. Super expensive to rearm. Yeah, I was thinking about that as well too, and it's only going to get more expensive, I think. But I'm wondering if at some point if you'll be able to craft your own bombs. I'm just thinking, like with the base building and all that stuff. Like maybe orgs will be able to do that to like keep the price down, because if you're a mercenary org, I'm thinking you're gonna need that a lot, right? If you're doing what you ghost mercs do over there. But yeah, it seems like the A1 would fit your style of gameplay, and it's a lot cheaper than the Hercules bomber, right? Which is just like insanely expensive. Anyway, I do like the look of these things. They look like mini Normandies. Drake Cutter Scout dropped. Apparently the Cutter sold very well. I am in love with the Cutter. I have a love affair going on with the Cutter, and apparently I'm not the only one. So apparently they sold a ton of these, and it's actually a part of 3 variants. So they decided to give us the Scout first, which has that huge dish on top. They kind of explained how scanning gameplay works a little bit. I think you're like doing pings in certain areas of space. I didn't quite grasp it. I didn't quite get it. But you know, basically for that scanning station, you're losing like 1 SU of cargo, so it's down to 2. Here's the thing. I flew this one in Pyro. That was my Pyro ship. I didn't like it. I like the original Cutter a little bit more. Mainly also because I think you can carry more in the back. It felt like the back, I'm pretty sure they mentioned this, that the layout of the ship had to be changed a little bit to accommodate some of the scanning stuff. So you do lose some space back there. Anyway, that is the Scout, and you can fly it now, but I think the big news was the Zeus. The Zeus is a reimagining of an old iconic design from RSI. Originally, it was an explorer ship, but the original Zeus's apparently had some safety issues, I guess, or something like that is how it goes. That's how they explain it. They basically got away from that very old concept of what the Zeus was. Let's face it, the truth is that the Zeus, when it was originally drawn up, they didn't have the design language for RSI quite yet. So when they decided to put the Zeus in game, they're like, this doesn't fit. So they decided to redesign it. And they're basically calling it a reimagining of the Zeus. And I think it looks pretty cool, to, you know, be quite frank. The Zeus comes in 3 flavors. As you can see here, the ES, which is the Essential. It's going to be your basic trim with a robust radar package for long-range exploration and enhanced weaponry. So this probably is the one that's going to stay true to what the Zeus originally started out as. The MR, the Mark, I feel like it's spelled Marquis, but but it's called the Mark. This is the one that's for your bounty hunter types. So all you Mandalorians out there, this is the one for you. You can go out and find your marks. It's got an EMP there, so you're gonna be able to stop your enemies in their tracks and bring them back for justice. I guess it's up to you whether it's gonna be hot or cold. I don't believe they've mentioned if there's any cells in the back of this thing. I would think for a bounty hunting ship, you should have some cells back there, like the Avenger Stalker. Who knows? Let's see what chat is saying here. Astro got the MR. So you're going to trade in a Cuddy Black for an MR, which I think is a pretty good trade. I would like to see if it has jail cells in the back, though. So if you do get that, let me know. It does have stackable pods. Okay, cool. And Shadow says the community would have appreciated a vintage classic style ship. I totally agree with you on that. Especially because the original Zeus looked kind of like the original space shuttle. And I think a lot of us space geeks out there love the NASA aesthetic, right? So it's a shame, but I guess one thing that they did talk about is that, you know, they did lose a lot of talent and they had to rebuild their talent. And it looks like right now they're sitting in a good spot. They were able to do a lot of new hires and they have people trained up. So that's why they're going to be producing a lot of ships in the next 12 months. But for RSI, I think for them to crank out the ships the fastest, and they talk about this later on, they really wanted to stick to that design language. Anyway, finally, the Zeus CL is the one that I'm interested in the most as a space trucker. The Clipper is the cargo variant. And, you know, it comes with tractor beams for handling cargo as well, too. And I like those tractor beams. I think for a trucker, it looks kind of sexy. I didn't actually look up how many SUs it has, though. So those are your Zeuses. Unfortunately, these are not flyable yet. They're in the white boxing phase, but the fact that they're in white boxing, I think, is pretty cool, actually. Let's see, that's going to be the interior. As you can see, it's got a healthy cargo bay in the back. And this is the white boxing section. The ship is also white. Maybe that's why they call it white boxing. But the fact that it's already in white box, I mean, I think we're definitely going to see this one this year, right? And speaking of ships that we're going to see this year, they teased us on what ships to look for in the next 12 months. So yes, various ships were teased. 12 unreleased ships are planned to be in our hands by the end of next year. That is awesome. Don't think I can remember a 12 ship year. If there has been one, let me know. Anyway, let's take a quick look at what they're teasing us with. Looks like they got the Origin X1s leading out the pack here. I'm still coughing. This looks like it's going to be an RSI rover. I can't remember the name of that one. I'm not sure what this one is. Does anybody know? Looks kind of like an Argo cargo without the cargo part. This, I'm guessing, is a Zeus, maybe? I don't know what this is. Anybody tell me what this is? This, I'm guessing, is the Legionnaire. This, I don't know what this is. This looks like a Retaliator base to me. Which, if it is, it should be easy. And it was pretty much the ship that got the standing O, I think, yeah. When everybody saw this, they were like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. You know? I myself, I'm surprised I didn't make a mess tonight. I was like, oh my gosh. Like, again, another ship that's in my hangar that I wasn't expecting to see anytime soon. Yeah, just catching up with chat over here. So the 128 SUs, that's for the Zeus, right? Which I think is pretty decent. Yes, so it really is the Argo cargo, because it looked pretty cool for an Argo cargo. But yeah, I mean, it looked like more out the pod to me. I don't know. Why would they? I mean, we already have the Argo cargo, right? So it must be something different. Medical Ursa. Oh, you know what? The ship I hadn't thought about is the Apollo, right? And they're doing RSI ships. They're doing a heavy focus on RSI for the next year, right? So maybe there was an Apollo in there. I don't know. What do you guys think? Or is that just wishful thinking on my part? The third one in the back is a C1. Okay. I'll buy that for $1. Also because it makes sense, right? We already have the A1, right? So there's no reason why they can't release the other spirits at this point, right? Let's see. It's the one they show in the trailer with loading the Hull C with cargo box. I don't remember that trailer. I'm gonna have to go back and look at that. Let me go back to that one real quick. This is definitely the Retaliator though, right? It's gotta be, guys. This one you're saying is the C1? I don't know. I'm just not sure. You're confident. It's a Zeus. I just don't know. I'll go with either one though. I think you guys are close. It's either a Zeus or a C1. This one I definitely... I don't know. I feel like it's Legionnaire. I don't know of another ship that has like thrusters like this. This one I'm really having a hard time with though. What do you guys think this is? Or did you guys say it already and I missed it? Legionnaire, of course. Yeah, okay. It's got to be that, right? Be more confident, right? It's definitely a Legionnaire. The reason why I'm not so sure is it looks exactly like an Elite Dangerous ship to me. But yeah, this one, look, I was getting like Fury vibes when I look at it, but it's way bigger than a Fury, right? Yeah, it looks like a TIE bomber. We're gonna have to look at that. I like that they gave us a little mystery here to decode. This one here, you're saying is Zeus or Galaxy? I think I was hoping Galaxy. But, you know, I think you're right. It's probably a Zeus because it would be smaller than whatever that is, right? And larger than whatever this is, which we're saying is an Argo cargo. But for an Argo cargo, it's kind of sporty up front. But I don't know of any other ship that looks kind of like that, right? This, I feel like I know the name of this one. There is a sporty Ursa out there, isn't there? I wish I could remember what it's called, though. Maybe it was the Lynx. And those are the A1s, which I've always contended that the A1s, there's no reason why they delayed this for so long. Like, the A1s could have come out, I think, like any year, but whatever. it's coming out now, so you know we have it. Which one? Before we talk about the Polaris, I want to talk about the Idris first. Because the Idris is featured in Squadron 42, and it's a Squadron 42 vehicle, it's pretty much done. So this was pretty big news. I guess there were a lot of Idris owners in the audience, or at least in the section I was in, because they pretty much lost their mind when they heard Idris was coming out. I myself am not an Idris fan. You guys know I waste a lot of money on starships, but the Idris is not one of the ones that I wasted money on because I'm just not feeling it. But anyway, big news for Idris people. All the variants are coming out, plus the kit. So if you're an Idris person, that's cool. I'm not an Idris person though. Anyway, moving along, let's talk about the Polaris real quick. I am a Polaris fan now. And I think the Polaris really stole the show. It's another RSI ship, and we kind of talked about this before. They're really trying to close out all the RSI ones because they really feel they've got the design language down, and it can interchange some of the parts, right? Like all the RSIs have similar cockpits and stuff like that, for example. So they can really just nail these and roll these out, I guess, fairly quickly. So I kind of like that. I just wish they'd spent a year on Origin. Anyway, as you can see, most of the interior is done in this white box, so we are definitely getting this ship this year. The other thing that kind of stood out to me is this ship is, I knew it was big, but this is big. like it's going to take you a while to walk from the front all the way to the back, right? But, you know, it is kind of like a mini capital ship, right? So there's that. The other thing I thought was pretty funny too is watch the end of this video here. Like they pretty much spent the whole time pumping up the Idris guys like, hey, you're gonna get your Idris, it's gonna be cool. And then they whip out the Polaris, and the Polaris like pretty much owns the Idris with a Scorpius in the back. So I felt kind of bad for all the guys who were cheering for the Idris, because I was like, oh, your ship just got owned right here. Anyway, not a fan of the Idris. I don't even like the shape of it. I'm not an Aegis guy. I think that's my thing. Anyway, go Team Polaris. Alright, and then finally, Squadron 42 is a very big deal as it closed out the show. CR Chris Roberts announced that Squadron 42 is feature complete, and he has engaged the polishers. So the polishers are polishing. They are scrubbing it of all of its dirt, all of its filth, to try and give it a smooth experience. Should we call it that? A polished experience, a shiny one. Basically, in the polishing stage, though, they just make sure everything looks spectacular and is fun to play, according to their video. And let me tell you, this video had the fanboys like, I mean, I was surprised that we didn't need diapers by the end of this, because people were literally like losing their mind. They were like losing it. Like as soon as the fleet came up. I mean, I thought it was cool, but I was able to contain myself. It is a pretty cool video though, and I think like if you watch the video when it cut to Manchester, I swore that that was in the game. So I thought that was pretty cool the way they did that. It looks pretty good. It looks pretty impressive. I'm not here for Squadron 42 myself. I'm not a Squadron 42 guy. I'm really here for the PU. But one thing I will say about Squadron 42 is that I was a very big Wing Commander fan when I was a kid. And Wing Commander got me through like a really tough part in my life. So if it brings back those memories for me, and it looks like it will, where you're actually like playing in a sci-fi movie and stuff like that, I think this game is going to do very good. And they went through spending a lot of time talking about, because this game has been in development forever, like the way that they motion cap people looked really good back in the day, and then they had to like re-update it to today's standards. But stuff like this looks super cool to me. I mean, I don't do this stuff personally, but I mean, hey, like 3 guys jumping out of a cutlass, you know, to like ambush some dude. I forget what that ship is, the racer. I mean, if I'm in the M50, I'm like, oh crap. I floated the wrong area of space. Now, I've been kind of critical of this stuff. I mean, there are great actors in Squadron 42, but in early days when we were given CR money back in 2014 and stuff like that, I was like, do we really need Gillian Anderson do we really need Luke Skywalker? Because I feel like these guys needed a big salary, right? And I'm like, there are plenty of good unknown actors out there that we could have used, and I think as long as the game is good, nobody cares, right? But it's fine. CR is very good and very big into like movie aesthetic and all that stuff, right? You think it helps to have A-list actors? I don't know. I think if a good game is good, like people will buy it based on the game. I don't get excited that often, I don't think. And I wouldn't say I was super excited, but I think that this is going to be a fun game to play, even though it's not the game that I want. Now, this part here I left in here because, again, this is another moment where the crowd lost their freaking minds. And I don't know why, because these are the bad guys. Why are we cheering them on? But they came in, when they did that circle, people were losing their mind, and then it was like standing O, everybody's getting up and cheering, and they're like, Chris, we love you. I was surprised people in the crowd weren't like fainting and crying and dying, stuff like that. But anyway, yes, I am deep into Concierge, so as much as I've criticized some things, I held the line. Did you? But anyway, it was a fun closing, I must say. I think it closed on a high note, and they did a good job with that. I think if there's one thing CIG does, they've got the showmanship down. And after you saw this part, heck, I mean, even though Squadron 42 isn't the game I wanted to play, I did kind of want to play it. I was like, I wish it was in Pyro Playground. Anyway, that was my CitizenCon experience. I had a great time going there, great company. I will say that I think the Star Citizen community is really awesome. And it was really nice to actually like talk to other people who play the game in person, because nobody in my real life plays this game. Like when I go to the office and I tell people, hey, I play this game, they kind of laugh at me because they're like, isn't that scam game or whatever? So it's kind of nice to be around other people who understand you supporting something like this. And I think a lot of us are going to feel vindicated, because if you're in the polishing stage, I don't know how long the polishing stage lasts, but obviously they want to do a good job and make sure that it comes out really good. But how many months of polishing can you do? I mean, this is coming soon, right? It's got to be coming by at least before the next CitizenCon. Anyway, and speaking of the next CitizenCon, would I go back to another CitizenCon? I have thought long and hard about this, because I am not a fan of Los Angeles. As a matter of fact, like leaving Los Angeles at LAX was an absolute freaking disaster for me. I think some of you guys know if you're on my Discord, because I was like texting the whole time. I was like, okay, we're leaving finally. And I guess there was a new plane pusher on, and he jackknifed our plane out of the airport. So he like broke the rim on the tire and everything. It was ridiculous. And they tried to change the tire while we were there. They couldn't change the tire. So then an hour later, they made us get off the plane, and then they had to find another plane. So, for a flight that should have taken me very little time, took me like all night. It was just absolutely ridiculous. And I was texting another friend of mine, and he was like, that's what life at LAX is like. That's always a disaster. So I don't know. If it is in LA again, I'm definitely flying into Long Beach or Reagan, but no LAX for me. Let's see what's chat saying here. You're hearing Manchester? Oh, if it's in Manchester, I will definitely be there. The only thing is I got to renew my passport, and I hear it takes like 6 months to get a new passport these days. I have been to the UK. I have not been to Manchester though, so I kind of want to see what that's like. I've only been to London, I guess, in the UK, to be honest. So there's a whole bunch of other stuff I need to see. I need to henge it at Stonehenge and all that stuff. You're an hour away from Manchester? Okay, well, if I make it out there, you're going to tell me which pubs to go to, right? You're going to tell me where the bar citizens are. But it seems like they're holding these CitizenCons where they have studios, because they had like an after party at Santa Monica if you wanted to spend more money. But I did not. I also, when I'm feeling better, I have a funny Space Tomato story that I can tell you guys. But maybe later. I need to work up to that one. Anyway, who wants to play some Star Citizen?